apart from crowd violence, soccer also has other problems with falling gates and finances. How do you see the answer? Is it a sort of a Kerry Packer type television circus, or possibly a Super League?
Well, it's obviously something's got to be done. There's no way that the smaller clubs, I mean, I started at Scunthorpe, so I'm the last one to speak out against them, but there's no way that smaller clubs, or even the larger clubs now, can be run with absolutely no concern about the economic side of it, as has happened over the last 5 or 6 years. And when I say economics, I mean, paying like $1 million or $1.5 million for a player. I mean, if you pay that for a racehorse, at least you can put it into stud afterwards. But a player, at the end of his contract, is free to walk out, so he's not really an asset. If he's got a 3-year contract and he costs $1.5 million, he's costing you $500,000 a year just to have him plus his wages. And now, thank goodness, at least the transfers are coming down. And this is something that I was able to do, being a big name player. I was able to limit my transfer fees, and I think the lead's really got to come from the Football Association in that some ways transfer fees, like in Germany, they're tied up with your wages. You cannot be transferred for more than 5 times your basic salary. Now, if you did that, at least you would get clubs coming out. Everyone got a chance to buy a good player. Whereas now, if a top player becomes available, Man United, Liverpool, and maybe 1 or 2 others, and that's your lot. The little clubs, the Southamptons, the Ipswiches, even the Norwich Cities, they don't have a chance because they just don't have this sort of revenue.
So would it be a Super League and other people part-time?
I'm not completely sure that a Super League would provide the answers. All that's going to happen with a Super League is you're going to get 18 clubs, say. They're going to come from the big cities, from the heavily populated areas. I mean, places like Bristol, places like Plymouth, places like Ipswich, Norwich, they're just going to fall by the wayside. Carlisle, and I think it's just going to be then, Liverpool, Man United, Man City, Everton, and then in Birmingham, Aston Villa, Birmingham City, possibly Wolves, possibly Coventry, Newcastle, Sunderland, Leeds, and then London. And I mean, if you live in Wales, you're going to have to travel 200 miles to watch the top players play, and no one's going to do that. They're not even travelling 20 miles at the moment, so I'm not sure that in its entirety that's the answer, but definitely changes in certain laws, and without absolutely changing the game completely, are required just to bring people's interest back.
And another moan and groan has been referees. Do you think there's a case for professional referees?
Well, I mean, it's a difficult question for me to answer as a player. I think the standard of refereeing, possibly like the standard of football, has gone down over recent years. But you've got to be fair to the referees and say never before, 10 years ago, were referees assessed so much. I mean, they're under so much pressure before they even blow the whistle to start the game. There's a guy up in the stand sat penciling how they're doing. There's a lot of new laws to be interpreted. And thank goodness now these new laws are being interpreted a little bit more sensibly than at first. I mean, the last thing in the world I think people want to do is go to watch Liverpool play Man United and after 20 minutes see a goalkeeper and a centre forward sent off the field because the goalkeeper's dived at his feet outside the box and maybe the centre forward's retaliated slightly. Suddenly the game becomes a bit of a farce, and I don't think people want that. I think the professional foul, as they call it, had to be stopped, and I think it has been stopped. But finishing games like we did a few weeks ago at Oldham with 9 men because a player said something to a referee very sharply in a moment of anger, I don't think he deserved to be sent off. Probably cautioned and probably fined by the manager, but sent off. So you get 11 against 9 players. It just didn't make sense to me.
There is one thing I've often wondered. You are professionals, I'm not talking about yourself in particular, but a lot of players, they are professional people, but they still lose their temper. They still are
they're human
referees,
beings, aren't they, as well? And I'm afraid it happens in life. We're all different. All players are different. Some are very placid. Some never do anything wrong in 15 years playing, and others, unfortunately, have got a different temperament. And I've been as guilty of that in the past as anyone. I've been sent off at Wembley, which I'm not proud of. But when I look back on it, I was 23 years of age. I reacted very sharply to what was a bad tackle, and the referee sent me off. And I don't think that's such a bad thing. I think it learned me a lesson, and that was the important thing, really. I mean, it's not making mistakes that makes you bad. It's the people who don't learn from the mistakes and keep making them. It's the guy who's been in jail who comes back out and does the same things again. He's the guy you can't forgive. And I think in my case, being sent off early on, although I thought it was harsh at the time, probably helped make me a better person. Just a better footballer, but a better person.
In your early career, you must have had a lot of determination. You came from Scunthorpe to Liverpool and onwards. Now, what was it that motivated you in those days?
Well, it was something that I think sadly lacking now, and that is that you just wanted to prove to people that you could do something, and I think it's lacking in the younger players today. Not all of them, there are some very good young players around, but everyone wanted to be a footballer, and everyone wanted to prove people wrong. I wanted to prove my school teacher wrong, who said, hey, stay on another 2 years and take your A-levels, you'll never make a footballer. And then when I got to Liverpool, everyone said, oh, you'll be in the reserves 2 years. Now, if you accept that, like some players do, and say, oh, well, I've got a year here to mess around before anyone's expecting me to, I think it will take you a year. But if you sort of go there with the attitude that, all right, I was meeting Tommy Smith, Emily News, Chris Lawler, Alan Evans was there, Toshi was there, all these sort of players who I'd only seen on TV. But I just went in there and without being rude, obviously, just wanted to prove that I could play with them. And I was able to do it in a matter of weeks. So it depends on your character. And as I say, sadly now, a lot of the kids coming into football, they haven't got that real, got to make it at all costs sort of attitude that players had 10, probably 20 years ago. They're not as desperate, simple as that.
And what motivates you now? You proved yourself.
Well, just the way I am, pride, I think. Every time you go out, you've got to prove something. First of all, to yourself. And then, if you... There's nothing I like better than going abroad, playing in front of big crowds in these friendly games, and they come mainly to watch you, to watch a player they've seen on TV or read about in the magazines. I love that pressure sort of situation. Now, if you don't, then you're dead. But, I'm lucky I was born that way. And I suppose Dad was a miner, and I come from that sort of stock where my dad once said to me, you're never going to go down the pit. Now, whether he thought I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, I don't know. But he was right, and I'm glad I was able to prove him right.
Kevin Keegan, the man now, do you have any ambitions outside soccer, for example, politics?
No ambitions politically. Obviously, I've got my views on politics like everyone else, but no, my ambition in life is and has always been really to enjoy what I'm doing and to make the best of any situation, really. I mean, I don't care what I do in my life as long as I'm doing something. I hate to be sat at home gardening, things like that. Fishing doesn't interest me. I've got to be on the move. I've tried all these relaxation things. People say, if you don't relax, you're going to have a heart attack and that. But I think the way I'm made is that's the only thing that will stop me. I don't mean that in a stupid way. I just love life, love meeting people, love getting around. So I've been very fortunate, really, that football's given me all these things. And I suppose when it's finished, I shall have a big gap in my life trying to find something that's going to compensate for football or for what football's given me. But you've got to do it. You're still a young man at, say, 31, 32, 33, whenever you decide that it's time to call it a day. And, life begins at 40, they say, so I've still got my life to come.
Kevin Keegan, thanks so much indeed.
My pleasure.